Hey guys, Adam Savage here in my cave. Lots and lots of cool objects abound in this space, and more arrive every day, and as you can see, some unbelievable cool objects have arrived this morning. In these 3 boxes are, I think, one of the costumes, or maybe more than one of the costumes, from Moonfall, the new Roland Emmerich film, which is in theaters and IMAX February 4th. They are the sponsor of this video, so thank you very much, Moonfall Production. One of the reasons they are here is because the hard parts and the helmets of these suits were built by my good friend and colleague, Ryan Nagata. And after I crack these open and take a look at them, we're gonna ring up Ryan and talk about the process of how he made them. But first, I get to open these up and look at them. These aren't for me to keep. Sadly, these have to go back to their original home, but I do get to oogle them for a little bit. Let's get a knife out, and then once we start to get the props out, I'll put on the white gloves. By the way, I love this technique of the orange cone and do not stack taped to the top of the box. That is a pro move. I hope it worked. Okay. Okay. Okay, we've got a harness that goes on top. Oh, we've got a Snoopy cap, and it looks like we've got some gloves in there. Sexy. Oh, beautiful. Wow. Look at that. Now we get to talk to the maker of these beautiful pieces of hardware, spacesuit builder extraordinaire, my colleague and friend, Ryan Nagata. Ryan, hello, sir.
Hi, Adam. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you, man. I'm looking at I haven't been in this shop that you're in now, and I'm looking at some of your beautiful pieces behind you.
Oh, yeah, I put some out for the video that were somewhat related to what we're talking about today. So.
Well, and the very first thing I noticed that I somehow didn't catch was that on the suits there is this orange and black convolute on the shoulders, and I hadn't realized that's a direct quote of the interior of the Apollo interior suit.
Yeah, the costume designer was highly inspired by like vintage prototype Apollo suits and the pressure garments inside the suits, which I really appreciated. So, I mean, that's why I brought this out today, because this is a replica that I've been working on for like 5 years of like a hyper accurate Apollo suit, and it shows all of the orange on the convolutes, and I think there's like a patch on the bottom that they kind of duplicated on their suits.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm getting ahead of myself because walk me through the process of making props for such a big tentpole Roland Emmerich action movie film. When did you do this, and how did they reach out to you? I'm curious about how the whole process went.
It was a long time ago now, almost 2 years. I think February of 2020 is when they first contacted me about working on the film. I think they made like 9 suits. I was going back through my photos and counting all the sets of hardware that I made. And I think it was like 9. And it was all just Apollo disconnects and like the Apollo rings. That's what the costume designer liked.
Like these wrist connects are Apollo, and so is the neck ring on the helmets. What we have in here, ladies and gentlemen, is a hero helmet from Moonfall. Oh, it's pretty. Put it right like that. Oh, look at that. Absolutely. The action is lovely. This bar is fully machined, the bailer bar. So what this looks like to me is a Gemini era helmet with an Apollo neck ring attachment.
In terms of the helmet, they were they had a bunch of different ones that they showed me, all vintage photographs of different prototypes and things, and I think they wanted something that looked kind of like an Aces helmet originally, which I didn't make. I guess I could have gone to you for that, but
always happy to help.
yeah, but I did tell them that I could make the Gemini helmet, which is kind of the ancestor of the Aces helmet, because they're both David Clark suits.
And it's got that Baylor bar on the front. This piece that comes up here. Yeah,
the designer and Roland Emmerich loved that Gemini helmet design, so I made it's like 6 or 7 of those for the production. It has so the suit has an Apollo ring, and
that's
in
this
order
neck
to get
ring
that
right here.
Yeah. In order to get it to fit, the Gemini ring and the helmet is a little bit smaller, so I had to adapt it to fit in there. I think there's kind of like there was like maybe a 1/4-inch gap I think around. I just poured resin in there to fill in the gap. I think.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, so that's the only Gemini helmet with an Apollo ring on the bottom that I think anybody's ever made.
If I'm correct about your parts, this neck ring would actually fit in a working Apollo neck ring.
I think that is it probably would. And actually last year I did get a chance to take my ring, my Apollo ring and put it in a real, it was an EMU suit ring and it did fit. It locked in there perfectly, so yeah.
Oh, here's the wonderful detail. In the Mercury helmets, air was blown past the visor through this little manifold here. And each of these little ports let air go down. And when air is traveling along the inside of a curved surface, it keeps that surface from fogging. This is an interesting insight into Hollywood right now. I think that what we're looking at here is 2 versions of the same helmet, one with a visor and one without. Said visor to be replaced by CG. Yeah. The reflections, as you could imagine, on a convex surface like this are diabolical for a filmmaker. And keeping the camera out of reflections is a real task. And so I believe they made a second set of helmets without visors so they had options if they needed them. Now they sent 2 kinds of helmets, Ryan. They sent one with the visor, and then they sent another without the visor. Did you also do this on First Man? Supply them some glassless visors as well as normal ones?
Yeah, I made 3 helmets with the visor, and I think, or maybe 3 or 4 with the glass, and 3 that just had the frame. And this was the same thing that I did for First Man with the X-15 helmet. There was a visorless or a glassless helmet and one with the glass installed. And the reason was that both production teams said they weren't sure if they were going to CG in the visor afterwards or use the helmet as is, and in both cases they ended up using the helmet. It's from what I've seen of the trailer. I don't know, maybe they did use those visorless ones in other scenes, but I think productions often just end up using the plastic. It's probably cheaper and easier as long as you don't get weird reflections in there or something.
Well, and once you get something in camera, it's really hard to replicate the veracity of that in-camera reflection, the little vagaries. And you pulled these visors in your shop. Yeah,
those are pretty clear as well.
They really are.
And I actually do those in silicone molds. I've found that vacuum forming clear plastic in a silicone mold is probably the yields the most optically clear result.
And do I remember correctly? You pull it into a negative rather than over
actually,
a positive.
I pulled one of I pulled the mold for that visor out here. It's just So there's like a hard shell mother mold on the back, and then this silicone thing, and I just put this whole thing inside of a box, and then I attach the vacuum pump to the box and heat up the sheet of plastic and lay the sheet on the top and then just suck the whole thing down in there. There's some tiny air holes on the edge.
I was wondering.
Wow. But yeah, it was sort of by accident that I discovered that that really works well to make a very clear visor, much more than if you vacuum form it over like a buck of some other material. I think it's because, first of all, silicone is a very poor conductor of heat. So unlike if you use like a plaster buck or something, you get weird mark off and stuff as as the plastic touches. So yeah, silicone is cool.
All right, let's take a look at these gloves. Oh, beautiful subtle airbrushing on the seams, making this look like the color has been fading. So what the airbrushing ends up doing here is, even though the fabric started out as a light blue and the airbrush blue value is darker and it goes over this, what it ends up doing is it ends up looking like the airbrush is the original color and the rest has sort of burned in from exposure to UV or use or storage or whatever. These are gorgeous and they're very sensitive. I have probably 24 pairs of different replica space gloves. None of them use strapping this small. I think this is 3/8. Yeah, it's 3/8 inch thick with these tiny little buckles, just lovely. And then Ryan's done, so I'm positive that Ryan built these wrist rings, and we've got a bearing surface on those. I'm curious, is that a bearing swivel or is it just a resin keeper in there or something?
Yeah, it's not. There isn't a real bearing in there. It's just a resin ring. But
okay.
I think I did. There is a piece of like UHMW tape in there just to make it slide more.
It's very smooth. I was really impressed.
Yeah. Actually, now I'm recalling that only the Hero ones move like that because there was definitely a time crunch and doing that moving ring requires like 3 pieces as opposed to 1.
Right.
And so I think the stunt ones are just a solid ring or a static ring.
They sent me a one Hero suit. That's this one here, and they sent a stunt suit as well. To be fair, they look identical to me. They look absolutely identical. But the thing I was most impressed with was how lightweight the whole costume is. I'm curious, did they ask you to keep things as light as possible as well?
No, they didn't ask. I think I probably did tell them about that there was no ventilation in the stuff that I was doing. It was all just static resin parts. So I would guess they probably just designed it to be as lightweight as possible, where you wouldn't need a lot of ventilation or cooling like that.
Right. No, they definitely feel like they'd be very comfortable suits to wear.
Yeah, they look pretty cool.
I'm always surprised by the high level of engineering the comfort for the actors. That is something that always comes across when you look at real Hollywood costumes. And that's a big difference between the stuff that I make and what a costumer does for a film. I'm adjusting my costumes to my own level of comfort when I'm doing it. And, I can make compromises on the fly because I'm willing to carry more weight out on the Comic-Con floor, for instance. But when you are suiting an A-list actor and you're paying them millions of dollars to be in a film, you don't want them to be uncomfortable. So everything really gets made as comfortably as possible so that that actor can concentrate on their performance and not the weight of the thing that they're carrying. And as I manipulate these costumes, I can imagine actually that the actors were very, very comfortable in them. They look way heavier than they are, but in fact, in reality, they are incredibly lightweight. So even down to the amount of fabric, they've done an inner sleeve which is smaller than the outer sleeve, or it's actually shorter, so you get more bunching on this. They've actually done some rouging with this strap here on the outside of the arm, and that helps add a physical body to this without actually adding layers. And as I put my hand in here, I can feel it's just like maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3 layers tops. Again, this was a much more reasonably comfortable costume to wear than most of my spacesuits. It is a blue sort of sateen. There's been airbrushing on a lot of the seams to just sort of take their value down a little bit and give them a little bit of that sort of age burn that old things have. Jason Reitman's costumer, Danny Glicker, told me that one of the key ways you can identify old clothes is what he called shoulder burn. They've been sitting on a hanger for decades, and maybe in some UV light that just the shoulders will be a slightly different color than the rest of it after all that time. The airbrushing on them is really lovely at making it look like they've kind of been ultraviolet burned over the years.
Oh yeah?
You know,
I've never gotten to see one. up close, only my own contributions to it. So.
Well, so the glove shows this the best. In these lovely little pleats on the fingers of the glove, they've done some airbrushing darker than the normal fabric, and it ends up making it look as if this is spent too much time in the sun.
Oh.
And it's kind of fading in a way, and it's a really lovely look. They did excellent work. Now the airbrushing serves to make this suit feel just a little bit older. When something is monolithically the same color, we automatically ascribe a kind of a new value to it. And when you variegate that, even on the most subtle level, it starts to communicate age. And I'm not going to spoil the plot of Moonfall for you, but the plot involves using legacy hardware for a current emergency. And I can see the legacy part in the airbrushing on this suit. It's beautifully done. It's very sensitive work. I want to take a look at the neck ring, and they've got these beautiful neck ring protectors, which I'm so into. And I think I recognize the castings because I know Ryan Nagata's work. Yeah, look at those neck rings. They're absolutely gorgeous. Who knew they'd send two beautiful suits? There's also some lovely infrastructure inside the knees and the arms are filled with padding, but the knees actually have some structure built into them, some springs. And that's actually accurate, right? Like inside Apollo suits, there's a bunch of structure for the reasons of keeping the astronaut comfortable inside. So the other thing that they have done for ease of wearing is they have actually permanently attached the strapping so that you can't undo it. This is an issue. When I take apart my Mercury or my Gemini suit and I want to put them back together, the harnessing is always this like super dance, and I would imagine that would be the same on a film. So my guess is there might have been a costume meeting where they were looking at this and they were like, you know what, can we make those straps just like a plug and play, never have to worry about it kind of thing? And the customer was like, yes, we can. And so they sewed them in place. I'm not positive that happened, but I'm going to guess that it did. Among the details on this Snoopy cap that are awesome, one is the gabardine type twill that is the main fabric with those lines feels very authentically period. But then they've also matched it to a close orange. First of all, gabardine does a couple of things. It has an old sort of, what do you call that? Grosgrain hatband kind of look to it, and depending on how you cut the fabric on its bias, it actually can look like two totally different colors, which is really kind of neat from a detail perspective. But then they've also matched that orange to this leather on both sides here. It's a gorgeous detail. Not accurate to NASA. I don't think there's much leather anywhere in the NASA suits that I can remember. But that doesn't matter. This looks beautiful. I have to tell you right away, one of the things I note about this, Ryan Nagata didn't build this. This is a parachute harness that goes on the suit. But I built one of these specifically for my NASA ACES suit. And the NASA ACES harness is effectively just an orange version of a standard parachute harness. So I had one made by my friend Anthony Kovacs, and because he made it to the original specs, it's heavy as hell. This is super, super lightweight because actors, you can't ask them to wear dozens of pounds all day long. So it's really neat how both heavy this looks and actually how light it is. I doubt it's more than 1.25 pounds, maybe 2 pounds. This is the safety vest. And you remember I had Anthony Kovacs build the one for my ACES suit. Yeah. The thing is that it's basically a real parachute harness he built. So it weighs like 10 pounds. And this thing, it's maybe 1.5 pounds. It is super lightweight. Nice.
I saw an interview with the costume designer recently where he said how inspired he was by all of this old 60s space hardware and spacesuits. And it's pretty clear in the design that it's that I could see where all of these various elements came from. And you don't really see that in a lot of movies nowadays. I mean, every movie tries to give some kind of vision of the future, and those suits are very vintage inspired.
Looking
and
towards the past.
They kind of look more real for that reason. But
One of the things I love about the niche you've carved out for yourself, Ryan, is that in the obsessiveness that you've used to build these things, first for yourself and then for others, you've acquired a kind of a really amazing knowledge base that not many other people have. And the production here utilized that knowledge base for these helmets and these parts.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been asked to consult on various things from both movies and now actual space. Some kind of various groups have come to me to ask things about suits, and I realized that when I started all of this, it was just because I wanted an Apollo suit.
Yeah.
But I dug up so much information that's just literally out of some people's garages that was all discarded at the end of Apollo because like companies like ILC were mostly concerned with whatever was next, the EMU. Yeah. So all the Apollo stuff just went in the garbage. But the thing is, like, now that like 50 years have passed since we've done that, and the space program is picking up again, there's a lot of people looking to recreate these things that we've already done, but all the people that did them are now retired or dead. So it has become something that I do now, is consult about those suits.
Well, I love that. Half the time I'm asking questions at the Smithsonian from the conservator department, they refer me to you.
Oh, that's fine.
On about half of my questions about Apollo history, they're like, you should talk to Ryan about that. He knows that stuff way better.
Oh, that's so fun. That's funny. Yeah, those are good friends now.
So if you made 6 or 7 or 8 suits worth of parts, you must have had a fair bit of a production facility going on with molding and casting and painting and refining and finishing everything.
Yeah, it was actually kind of fortunate because I had just these are not things that I would just made for this production. I make them all the time for my own suits and stuff that I do. So I had just redone all of the molds for the Apollo stuff.
Amazing.
But the thing was, I had pulled so many out of there that like a lot of them are busted now. I got to redo it again. So, but it was
you
fine.
can only cycle a silicone mold so many times before it starts to wear out.
Yeah.
Do you mind talking about your technique for getting such a lovely finish on your cast parts?
I don't think there's anything that unique about those, although I think that's 2K clear coat on there. It's just a really good quality strong clear coat on the ring.
That's that 2-part automotive clear coat that has a thermoset.
It's kind of toxic. I don't use it that often, but in that case, I think there was I knew that the helmet's going to go in and out of the ring, and so I just wanted it to be as strong as possible.
So it didn't get wear and edge wear on the paint.
I'm kind of curious how the helmet's held up. I always wonder when I make these things if there's like a lot of chips and stuff on the paint. But
let's take a look at the Hero helmet, because I don't think there is much, Ryan. To be fair, over here on the right where the bayonet is for the helmet, there's a little chipping around there.
Okay.
But that's it. And it's, I mean, the whole front piece here is absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. I'm also recalling now that I sent a first set of parts to them just so they could test and make a prototype suit. And there were some problems with the paint wearing off. So that's why I switched to the 2K clear coat on the ring, which seems to have held up pretty well.
And am I right, you did the machining on these baler bars? This is lovely.
Yeah, I did. That's just like a piece of flat bar, and you just run it through the mill. And my mill is not super precise. I don't really take care of it and tram it, like you're supposed, like a real machinist does. I think you and I have both said that we're not really machinists.
No.
But I think I am even less so than you. So like sometimes I'll just like run the mill and like have to adjust midway through, and everything's just with rulers and calipers. But
well, and if I see some artifacts. You had to move this in the vise as you were milling it. Am I right about that? Yeah. Ryan, I'm really super curious about the about this beautiful transition between the white part and the clear part. Is that just a painted line? Is that a masked and painted line?
Yeah, it is actually, and I think both the Mercury and the Gemini. So my Gemini helmet is actually based on a Mercury helmet, and I did that so I could keep one mold for the visors. They are slightly different sizes. They were made by different companies, but they're close enough that I can get away using the same mold for both visors. But both of them have like a fiberglass reinforced frame around it.
Right.
And so for mine, I just cast the frame right onto the visor, just for so I don't have to cast a second piece.
Right.
But to put a little texture on it, I think with
it does have a little bit of a texture, like a fiberglass texture.
I think I put like some kind of cheesecloth and just put filler primer over it to put a little bit of a texture on there and then paint over it. On the Mercury, it's almost, that fiberglass frame is almost all the way covered because you put the metal stripping around the front. Yeah, so you barely see it. The Gemini, you see much more of that fiberglass frame, so I put just kind of spray paint a texture in there.
You spend the mid part of COVID building all of these helmets, and then 2 years later, you see a trailer and you see your helmet on some movie stars. What was it like to watch the first trailer for the first time and see your work on the big screen here?
It's always really cool to finally see them, on actors in the settings that they were meant to be. Yeah, just to see it on the big screen is always cool. And also when they add, because all of that stuff is resin, like I'm sure they'll add sound effects to everything and then just make it kind of come to life. I always get a kick out of that too, because I know those aren't the real sounds.
Exactly. Are there any aspects of this build that changed the way you think about the suits that you make? Did you learn something new in the process, or did it maybe give you another thing you wanted to replicate at some point in the future? Like, did it change your obsession path?
Actually, when I saw the final suits that they had done with the sewn convolutes and everything on there, it did kind of, it's something that I've always wanted to do after I finished this hyper accurate version. The suits that I make for most people don't have all the internal parts.
Yeah.
But I did think a little bit differently about how I would make my sort of standard basic suit for people. And I'm actually working on it now. That has sort of a sewn convolute interior. I have a piece right here. I'll just...
Yeah, show.
So this is just like a arm for an Apollo suit that I'm working on. But it has so I'm doing like sewn...
Oh, nice.
And this is just like foam, this kind of foam tubing that you use to like plug cracks that you're like putting caulk over. And so, I don't know what you call this exactly, but I found that when you insert that into these sewn convolutes, it does give it a very like. I used to put like dryer duct, I think maybe even your suit might have some of that in there, but I never liked how super hard it is, because I have gotten to handle some real suits now, and they are soft before you pressurize them. Not super soft, but they're not as hard as a tube. So I found that putting that kind of stuff inside it actually gives it it's a nice in between. So seeing that suit with the way they did the shoulders, I was like, I should sew. It would be cool to actually sew some convolute type structures into the suits. I think it's an easy way to get that look.
They also did something which I found really fascinating, which is on the outside of the arms, there's a band of webbing, and they've sort of ruched up the fabric along the webbing. And I mean, this is the two layers that make up this suit are about as heavy as my t-shirt. They're super, super lightweight.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the rouging has given the arm a lot of body and what looks like a kind of a structure without having to add stuff to it, which is a really neat solution.
Yeah, the ruching is actually accurate for the Navy Mark IV suit.
Oh, wow,
or
really?
the Mercury. Yeah, the Mercury suit it's all ruched on the elbows, and that's how they got the flexibility out of it. I used to think that it was just like wrinkled, like you're like pulling up the sleeves, but no, it's all intentionally ruched, and then there's a piece of binding tape just like that along the sides. So they were probably inspired by that.
It's weird that the costumes in this film are like speak so directly to you and me.
Yeah.
I love how much NASA history they've unpacked and laid into this. It's a beautiful aesthetic exercise.
Yeah, I liked it.
Ryan, the work is so beautiful, and it looks and sounds like you had a lot of fun doing it. Thanks so much, man, for walking us through the process.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk to you.
All right, man. Be well.
All right. Bye.
Just like campers, we prop makers like to leave things better than we found them. And there you have it. Frankly, I'm going to be sad to see these pieces go. The hardest part for me today has been not putting any of these things on because they are not mine and I don't want to damage them. I handled them with white gloves because that is what they are now, museum pieces. But a huge heartfelt thanks to Roland Emmerich and his entire production team for sending these pieces here so I can see them and talk about them. Thanks to Ryan Nagata for sharing all of your wonderful tips and tricks and techniques and your expertise with us. And honestly, I am so glad that there's a big Hollywood action movie that delves into NASA's incredible history, both aesthetically and from an engineering standpoint. It's very exciting. Again, Moonfall is out in theaters on February 4th. You can buy tickets to see it following a link below. I am Adam Savage, and I will see you, as always, next time.